The Dillon Tribune and the KDBM KBEV Political Forum. Tonight we have two sets of candidates. Two of them are running for sheriff, the other two for the House here in the state of Montana. We're going to have questions that have been submitted by folks prior to this evening's presentation, and we will also hopefully have some questions from people in the audience. The format will be that the candidates each get 3 minutes to introduce themselves and say whatever they want to say in 3 minutes. After that, we have questions that have been submitted for both candidates, and we're going to alternate the order, starting with whoever I think about at the time I start. Each candidate will have 3 minutes to answer the question. And after that, if there are questions that have been specifically addressed to a particular candidate, that candidate will have 1 or 3 minutes to answer, and the other candidate will have a minute if he or she chooses for rebuttal. Then hopefully we'll have questions from the audience. I will announce when we get close to the end of the pre-submitted questions that I'm getting close to the end. So if anybody from the audience has questions they would like to ask, you have to come down here so you can use this microphone so the folks on the radio can hear you. We've also invited candidates who are unopposed in the primary election to come tonight just to introduce themselves. And we do have one here, and that's Tom Rice. Tom?
Yes, for those of you who don't know, I'm Tom Rice. I'm a county commissioner from District 1. I have been for 9 years now. And I am opposed in the general election. But tonight, more than anything, I'm here as a citizen, just to, like you all are, to listen in on the candidates that are opposed in the primary. It's vastly important for you to be involved, and I admire them for being involved also. And I wish each and every candidate good luck. And I, just to push a little for myself, I urge your support and welcome your vote in November. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Is anybody else here? Okay, let's start. The first folks on our panel tonight are those people running on the Republican ticket for sheriff. We have Jay Hansen and Paul Oldynski. And why don't we start with the incumbent? And another thing that happens, I lose track of the person I asked the question. So if I get out of order, stop me. We'll start with Jay. What are the duties of the sheriff and the deputies? And do we have enough staff to properly perform those duties? And the second part of the question is, what would be your answer if we experience growth similar to that has occurred in, say, Bozeman and Hamilton? Whoops, I've already messed up. I didn't give you your 3 minute interview. So we'll still start with you, Jay. You got 3 minutes.
Same question?
No, just whatever you want to say.
Okay. As a native of Montana, and I grew up in the Flathead Valley. After graduating Montana State University with a degree with Bachelor's of Science, I moved back to Beaverhead County, where my father was born and raised, up in Big Sheep Creek, back in 1902. I found employment with the Beaverhead County Road Department while I was working, or while I was going to school. I lived in Lima when I had that county job. After I graduated from Montana State University, I settled down in Dillon, took a job with Williams Speed. I worked for Gary Williams and Kim for about 3 years. In fact, when I left Bozeman after graduating at MSU, I ended up running out of money, and I ended up being a bartender for a little while. Gary Williams came in one night, offered me a job, and again, I went to work for him for about 3 years. Eventually, I was hired in 1984 by Beaverhead County Sheriff's Office. Also the same year, I married my wife, Sue. Sue and I have 2 children, 2 grown children. and she's also the public health director. I've also got two older brothers that live here in Beaverhead County. Both of them have families. For over 29 years, I've served and protected Beaverhead County residents. My career began in 1984, like I said earlier, when I was hired as a deputy. Since then, I've worked in many different roles and positions with the Office of the Sheriff. In 1996, I was appointed the Sergeant Deputy, and ultimately in 1999, I was appointed Under Sheriff until 2005, when I was appointed the first investigator for Beaverhead County. In 2006, I earned your trust and I was elected as your sheriff. I believe that the different roles that I've worked assisted me with my career, making me a better leader. I also believe that born leaders are few and far between, and typical leaders that I've had the fortune to meet have become leaders by developing their skills over a significant period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Paul, 3 minutes.
My name is Paul Oldynski. I married my wife and I moved to Beaverhead County in 1988. We moved here from Southern California, where I was a experimental machinist working in aerospace. We moved up here because we had 2 kids at the time and needed a better place to raise our kids than Southern California. I was raised there, but things have changed quite a bit over the time from where I was a kid to the time when I was raising my family. So we prowled around, we found Dylan. Actually, Dylan found us, Carl Dietrich, who owned Hitching Post at the time. He was looking for a gunsmith, and I was doing custom gun work in California at the time as well. And talked to Carl. We came up here, looked around the town a little bit. We really liked the country, so we moved up in 1988. Since then, I had my gunsmithing shop, and I did a lot of research machining for different companies around the country pretty much. At the same time, the economy was pretty rough, so I was also doing some cowboying, because I had cowboyed before. And I also worked construction, kind of fell back on what I knew from when I was younger, when I was just out of high school. In 2001, I became a reserve for the sheriff's office. And then, actually, back up a little bit, in 1993, we had our third daughter. 1993, we had our third daughter, or our second daughter, our third child. And anyway, and in 2001, I became a reserve deputy for the county. In 2002, I was hired on full-time. As a deputy, I was the reserve coordinator for a time. I was a primary SWAT operator. Was a DARE officer and a deputy county coroner. After leaving the sheriff's office in 2012, I reopened my gun shop. I do mainly pre-1898 work now, mostly woodwork, and I got my contractor's license, so I'm also doing some contracting work as well. I'd like to get back into the sheriff's office again. I feel that with my life experience, I think I would be a good leader. I get along well with people. I can deal well with people, and I would appreciate your votes this June and then in November.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, I'll give you the question again, Jay. What are the duties of the sheriff and the deputies, and do we have enough to properly perform those duties? And the second part of the question, what would be your answer if we get the type of growth that other communities like Hamilton and Bozeman have seen?
Excuse me. The duties of the sheriff is, first of all, preserve the peace, arrest and take all those to the court who have attempted to commit or have committed crimes, prevent and suppress all breaches of peace. The county humane officer for protection of animals. We're supposed to attend all courts. Other courts like district court and justice court, but not city or municipal courts. We're also to take charge and keep the detention center, which is a full-time job. That's why I have a full-time jailer. And the jailer is specifically not a detention officer, but he is the leader of the detention officers or the manager of the detention officers. Also take charge of and serve and return civil process, and take charge of the search and rescue units within the county. The question concerning
If we have a lot of growth in our county, what problems would that present for the sheriff's department, and what would you have to do?
right now, I have only 5 deputies with 2 reserve deputies. We just completed a review of candidates for reserve deputies. We do not have at this point the money to increase the number of deputies, but I can increase the number of reserve deputies because they're not paid, and I can utilize them in certain areas, in certain situations. I think that if we were to become a Hamilton or a Bozeman, something like that, it would be very difficult, and I believe that we would have to find some other funds other than COPS grants and things like that. I think the public is going to have to come up and step up and provide the law enforcement that's going to be needed if we
Paul, minutes, will you repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay, what are the what's your opinion of what the duties of the sheriff and the deputies are? And do we have a big enough staff to handle those responsibilities in the county? And what effect would a significant growth in our county have on the ability of the department to perform those duties?
I think the main duty of the sheriff is to be a supervisor over his deputies. He's in a supervisory position and needs to be able to give his deputies the tools that they need in order to do the job. That can be kind of tough a lot of times because it all depends on funding. But the deputies' main duties are I think should be proactive, which means a lot more patrol time. The guy needs to spend his time out on the road and visiting with people and finding out what people need, where problem spots may be, and that's what the sheriff's got to do. He's got to make sure the guys have that the guys have the ability to do that, the funding. So we need the funding to do that. The detention center, we've got a pretty good one. It's a little bit dated, but I mean we work with what you've got. When I was there, they had a heck of a crew. They had a really good crew down there. And the detention officer I've known, or the jailer, I've known him for quite a while. And he's a pretty good hand. As far as becoming a Hamilton or a Bozeman, I just say yikes. But with that kind of population increase, the tax base is going to grow as well. But whether it grows enough to deal with the population increase would be another story. So you have to figure out some way to come up with the funds needed to pay for the additional help that we're going to need. And I'm sure that would include a bigger detention center, more deputies, which means more vehicles, more equipment, more detention officers, bigger dispatch staff. It'd be a tough, it'd be a hard one, but it's nothing that we, can't overcome if you put your mind to it.
Okay, thank you. The next question, and I guess we start with you, Paul. Are you aware of a communication issue between the city and the county departments? And if so, what are your concerns or solutions to that problem?
I'm not really aware of any. I mean, like I say, it's been 2 years since I've been involved in it. When I was there, I thought that the relationship between, like the county road department and sheriff's office was pretty good. I mean, when we needed something, they were there for us. And when they needed something from us, you know, we were there for them. Would you give me the rest of the question again?
If there's an issue, a communication issue between the city and the county departments, and I don't know what departments the person was talking about, but if there is an issue, what would you do about it?
The only thing you can do is sit down and talk and work it out. I mean, you don't just let things like that go and let hearsay get run amok. You know, I mean, you sit down, you find out with the supervisor, find out who the problems are with, and then sit down with those guys and find out what their issues are. I mean, maybe it's just a perceived problem that he thinks that he has or she thinks that they've got. And lots of times when you sit down and talk it out, you can get this stuff worked out.
Okay. Jay?
The sheriff's office and the Dillon Police Department have worked together very well. In fact, exceptionally well these last couple of years. I remember when John Guchek was the chief, John had come into my office and we would visit every morning, or at least try to every morning. When Paul Kraft took over as chief, we too at least touch bases with each other every morning. I don't see any kind of problem between the departments, and if so, I'm not aware of it, and neither is Paul Kraft either.
Okay, good. Jay, next question, and this is sort of a consolidation of a lot of questions we received. What is your stance on balancing Second Amendment rights and public safety?
My stance, well, I think our Constitution is very vital, and the sheriff's office, all sheriff's offices in Montana have already decided that we've come to a conclusion that we will uphold the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Montana.
Okay. Paul?
I don't know what to say to that. I mean, 'cause what Jay said it's right. I mean,
Okay.
the Second Amendment is probably one of the most important ones, I believe.
Okay, the next one is a combination of some, at least 2 or 3 questions, and Paul, we'll start with you. What is or what would be your approach, and I guess proactive action to problems with the youth in our community with respect to things such as drugs, suicide, alcohol consumption, and bullying?
As far as the drugs and the alcohol and that, I think the best place to start there is with the DARE program that the sheriff's office already has implemented. I mean, I was a DARE officer. You can see the difference it makes in the kids, and if you get to them young enough, you can a lot of times eliminate any problems in regards to that. As far as the drugs that they have access to, we just need to have more. We have to be really proactive in chasing down these guys these people that are peddling stuff. I think, I'm not sure, but I think Sergeant Mulkey still has Buster, this drug dog. Utilizing him, you know, is really good to head these guys off before they get, you know, work harder at pursuing the drug problem. I mean, so many people are so afraid of impinging someone's civil rights that they overlook the overall safety of the community. And walking, in my opinion, and according to the Supreme Court, walking a dog around the suspect vehicle isn't a violation of civil rights. And now this is all what I've been told and what I've read, before I actually implemented, pushed it out. Obviously look into it a little deeper, but suicides. I've had a few friends that have committed suicide over the years. I don't know what you can do to stop it. You offer mental health care to them. You offer a sympathetic ear if you see a problem with them, but ultimately they have to make the choice to seek out health care. You can't force someone into it. And unfortunately, I don't know any other answer than that. As far as bullying goes, I don't know. Sometimes I think bullying is more of a perceived problem than a real problem. I mean, granted, some people are, but if people stick together, the bullies usually end up alone.
Thank you.
One more time, John.
Hey, pardon?
One more time on the question.
Okay, the question, well, it's a combination of things, but what is your approach, or what would you do, if you could, to handle the youth problems, such as drugs, suicide, alcohol consumption, and bullying?
I think a close working well with the juvenile officer, Sam Stockett. Sam came to us here about 2 years ago, and he's doing an exceptional job. My office, my sheriff's office staff, and myself, we work well with the high school and the Dillon Middle School in Parkview. I think it's important that we continue the DARE program. In fact, I've been the DARE instructor since 1991. I think along working together with juvenile office, the schools, the DUI task force that we have, that we just started probably about. I mean, it's developed better here in the last 3 to 4 years. We've got an exceptional group. I also think that the Southwest Montana Drug Task Force is a good resource. I'm a member of that task force, and I will continue to be a member of that task force, specifically because I have 5 deputies, and 5 deputies who are well known in the community, and they can't particularly do anything with drug enforcement because people know them, and they know when they're walking down the street, the drug users are walking away. So that's why we use the drug task force. They provide an exceptional resource for us to eradicate drugs and get them off our street.
Okay, let me ad-lib a little bit here, because we did get a question late today with respect to bullying. And from the question, I'm assuming that there is no law in Montana regarding bullying. And so I guess the question would be, do you think legislation to make bullying or harassment a crime or a misdemeanor, I don't know which, should be passed? And if it were, would that help you or your office in handling these types of problems?
Bullying, I know that the schools deal with that on a daily basis. I don't know that I don't know that there needs to be a law passed, because bullying can be construed as disorderly conduct as well, and assault. So I think we have some criminal codes that would suffice to deal with bullying.
Okay, Paul, do you have any opinion on that?
I agree with Jay. I don't believe legislation is going to solve anything. Like he says, we've got laws already on the books to protect people from that kind of stuff. It's a real deal.
Okay, thank you. We have, I think, about 4 questions for Jay and 2 for Paul. So Jay, you'll have 3 minutes to answer, and Paul, you have a minute to rebut or answer thoughts. And I think, Jay, maybe you've already answered part of this, but who is teaching the DARE program and how is it structured?
The DARE program now is, there's only myself and Sergeant Mulkey, who's the canine handler who lives down in the Hansen area. I hired a young man a year and a half ago. His name is David Sullivan. If you don't know, his father was the chief of police up in Anaconda. And Dave is an exceptional deputy. He's agreed to actually become a DARE instructor. He's leaving here in June for a 2-week class over in Pierre, South Dakota. He should be back and ready to go next fall to kind of help Dan and I with the DARE program. Something else?
Well, I think that covers it.
Okay. Next question then?
Well, let's see if Paul has anything to say about the DARE program that you want to add.
I'm sorry, we asked the question again.
Well, the question was, who is teaching the DARE program and how is it structured?
That's pretty much a question strictly for Jay. I think the DARE program was good. When I was an instructor, and I really enjoyed it, I had the schools over in Bakeville, Wise River, Wisdom, and then Jackson. And I mean, it was a full day to make the circle, but it was probably one of the best days out of the week. It was a lot of fun. And I think it's a really good deal.
Okay, the next question for Jay. If you're elected again, what priorities do you have for the your next term?
I've broken this down actually into goals and objectives. Provide all communities in Beaverhead County with effective and efficient law enforcement. Provide law enforcement services promptly and professionally. Promote the office of the sheriff as an integral part of the community, and where that comes from, it's all about the DARE program there. And I want my deputies to become a part of the community. I like the idea of my deputies getting out there and coaching Little League or helping with the little shooters, being a part of the JCs. That's what I want in my deputies, somebody that wants to stay and live in the community and provide law enforcement. Another, identify criminal activities and actively work towards reducing crimes within the county and the communities using appropriate resources, procedures, and technology. And that is specifically this year, the technology that I'm talking about is increasing or updating our 911 system. It was, we purchased it, I think, back in 2003 or 2004. It's getting to the point where we're having some problems with it. It shuts down every once in a while, and we just can't have that. So we're looking at new technology for the 911 program. My objectives then is to continue to assess the quality of our service to the public on a regular basis, continue to assess employee abilities and support them in reaching their potential, continue to manage employees' schedule to allow for service to the community outside the scope and their regular duties, the things that I just touched ahead of time. Continue to support local schools and their activities, as well as providing DARE, identify and develop resources that support new technology in communications, investigations, computer crimes, and courtroom security. I brought that up with this courtroom security. It concerns me. I think that we have a group of people up there, county employees, including the judge, the administrative assistant there. I think it's important that we some sort of a security issue update. Thanks.
Hey, Paul, we had actually the same question for you, so we might as well do it now. If you were elected, what are your plans and priorities? And you can have the full 3 minutes instead of the 1 minute rebuttal.
I think as far as plans go, you need to give the deputies, I think on that TV interview, they said, you know, I said give the deputies more free range, give the deputies more opportunity to get out and about in the community, out in Polaris, Wise River, things like that. Give me the question again, please.
Well, the question is, if you were elected, what would be your plans for being sheriff and your priorities during your term?
Well, one, like I said, about the deputies, more free rein. My biggest priority, I think, is going to be the drug problem. I mean, it's not huge like in some of the big cities, but it's bad enough. And I think one of my biggest priorities is going to be to put the drug dog, the drug dog that Deputy Mulkey has, or Sergeant Mulkey has, to work more often. Make more opportunities for him to get out there. Try to develop some more, what I call them CIs, confidential informants of things that are going on. Constantly I have people tell me I could tell you where every drug house in Lima is, I could tell you where every drug house in Wisdom is. Follow up on that kind of stuff. I'm sure Jay's probably got Dan down there following up on it, the guys in town as much as you can, but be more proactive about it. Work at it a little bit harder. Put a lot of emphasis on the DARE program. Statistics show that if you catch them by the time they're 12 years old, which is about 5th grade, which is where their prime time is, you have a lot better chance of having them not, I think I mentioned this before, that having kids not go and try drugs, you know, any kind of drugs, whether it's marijuana or meth or even alcohol, because technically alcohol is also a drug. But so I guess my biggest priority is going to be the drugs, getting deputies out more, getting the office and the people that work in the office keep them working as a good team. And so like I said, I've always said that if you're happy at your work, you're going to do a lot better job.
Let me throw in a question here, and I know there are problems on how you conduct your office within the Constitution, but I'm told that you could go to the high school, you can go to the middle school and contact almost any kid and ask him where the drugs are, and he could take you right to the house or tell you where it is. And I don't know if that's true, but I've heard it from a lot of folks. And so from that, I'm assuming your officers know that also. And I know you can't just barge into somebody's house without a warrant, but I'm curious whether there aren't other ways to expose these folks living in our community. I don't know if you put the picture in the paper or you publish notice of that. Either one of you have any ideas on this, or is it too much of a vigilante justice type thing? Paul, go ahead, I'll let you start. Because I think you prompted that question.
I did?
I think so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they probably can. I mean, there's a lot of places where everybody knows this stuff's going on. Well, you can't just barge in, you have to develop probable cause, which takes a lot of time, takes a lot of resources. That's one of those places where sometimes the drug task force might be beneficial if you get them to come down and work with you on stuff like that. And once you hit it, where the biggest problem comes in is as deputies, we can bust them, or they can bust them, throw them in jail, and then get them into the court system. And the court system is so bogged down, and the jails or prisons are so full up that these guys, it's almost like a revolving door. They go in, they might get a sentence of 5 years, and they're out in 8-10 months, and going right back at it again. It's just, it's more than just law enforcement. It's everybody that's involved in it. It's the court system, it's the probation and parole, it's the prisons that don't have the room to house them. I mean, it's a huge problem, but all you can do is just keep pecking away at it and make life for them in Beaverhead County really miserable. So if they're going to apply their trade, they can go someplace else and apply it.
Jay, any thoughts on extra enforcement?
What's that?
Do you have any thoughts on how maybe we could expose some of these folks so they might not feel so welcome?
Well, I don't know that we can throw a big ribbon on the door indicating that they're drug dealers, but rest assured, I know that between myself and Paul Kraft, no more than what you think we do.
I wasn't saying you're not doing that. Maybe other things could be done.
I think the drug task force works well with us. We develop the intel, and the intel is only as good as the deputy or the police officer can get. Sometimes you get little bits and pieces, and then 6 months down the road you might get something else that kind of adds to it, and it takes a long time sometimes to get a felon off the street who's dealing drugs or using drugs. When we do get them there, and when we do get them up in the district court, the question is where do they go? And we've discussed drug court, we've discussed treatment, but yet it's not happening. And I think law enforcement is doing their job. We're just not doing a good job once we get them arrested.
Okay, thank you. Next question also for Jay. What do you consider your important accomplishments in your years as sheriff? I guess you could consider that also as your years as deputy.
I knew this was coming.
Did you submit this question to me?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. I think, well, I'll start. Minimizing liability in lawsuits. The biggest lawsuits are right there in the detention center. There's a lot of inmates that have a lot of free time on their hand. So consequently, there are in such areas like Hamilton and Bozeman, they've got some problems with liability. I think we've increased our jail and our office security. We've added outdoor inmate activity yard here in the last 2 years, and that came out of my budget. I didn't have to ask commissioners for that. I just realized that there was a problem and we needed to do something about it. We've actually reduced our liability in our lawsuits. I think the next one is increasing training and education, especially in the area of responding to active shooting incidents like the Sandy Brook. And we've increased our training in mental illness issues. My detention officers, my dispatchers are constantly training, in-house training, outside the area, at the academy. My detention officer that is up there right now, he's completed 4 weeks of detention, and he was elected the president of his class. He was voted 32 out of 37 students. I'm headed up there tomorrow to watch him graduate and congratulate him on a good job. Minimizing employee turnover. In 2005, we had a huge turnover, eight employees in a matter of 4 months. I took over in 2006 and alleviated that problem. I have managed $1.5 million budget since 2006. I've always been in the black. I'm always taking care of the money that you provide me. We continue to work effectively with the police department, other agencies like Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and the State Highway Patrol, EMS and fire in all communities. My chaplain, I brought a chaplain on board here last 2-3 years ago, and he's done an exceptional job for us.
Paul, any comments on Jay's accomplishments, or what you consider lack of it, or what you would do differently?
Well, I don't have an intimate enough knowledge of all that Jay does in the office, so I can't honestly comment on anything like that. One thing I really do give him kudos for is bringing on the chaplain. I think the guidance and the support that a chaplain can give on a high-stress incidences that law enforcement has, that deputies, dispatchers, detention, all of us deal with it. And to have somebody there that you can talk with and open up to, I think it's a good deal. And I think that Dale was an excellent choice. I think I mentioned that once before somewhere, that I've known Dale quite a while, and I couldn't imagine anybody that would fit better than Dale.
Okay, thank you. We're getting pretty close to the end, so if anybody has any questions they'd like to ask either one of these gentlemen, come on down now so I can hand you the mic. Jay, the last question we have submitted for you, the person said that they assumed that you had received some negative comments over the years, and they wanted to know either comments about you or your office, and how did you handle those? How do you handle people who are criticizing you or your office? And if you haven't received any, I guess there's no answer.
Well, let me put it this way. I'll have 30 years in November, and I've had almost 30 years of law enforcement. If I haven't made somebody mad, I'd be very, very surprised. I think you can get my gist. Sometimes there's people out there that simply don't want to hear what I have to say, and they take exception to it. But I'm fully committed to the communities of Beaverhead County, and I think that I'll continue to do the best I can. I don't like to cause grief with people. I just tend to say what I need to say, and sometimes that's taken off.
Paul, anything you want to say on that? You worked there for a while.
No, I agree with Jay. We used to have a saying that if you didn't make somebody mad today, you weren't doing your job, because when you're in a position where you have to tell people things that they may not want to hear, you're going to make people mad. There's just no getting around it. And the important thing is that you always do what you think is the right thing, and you always stand by that. There's nothing else that an officer can do. You're not always going to be popular, but it's what you got to do.
Okay. We had two questions for you, Paul. One was, is this your first time that you run for sheriff?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And the other question was basically, what plans do you have? You got elected. I've already asked you that, but if you want to add something to it, now's the time to do it.
I don't think I have anything to add to it. My biggest plans are to keep the dairy program going strong. Spend a lot of time with my deputies. Make time to spend with them in an area where they're in their comfort zone, so I can find out what they're really thinking, what's really going on with them. Coming into the office, in my mind, isn't a comfortable place to be. Go out, take a ride along with them, for a morning or even for a couple hours, sit down and talk with them, sit down and have coffee and talk with them, find out what's really going on with them. In a place where they don't have to worry about anybody hearing or any gossip that, oh man, so-and-so's getting called on the carpet today. It's not that way. And so that they know that they got the freedom to do that. Not just the deputies, but the detention officers and dispatchers, everybody. We're all one group in there, is the way I always looked at it. And so you have to take care of all of them equally. So their program, pursuing the drug issues hard. You look at the statistics for other type of crimes in the county, and they're actually pretty good. There's not a lot of major crime in Beaverhead County. I mean, we're so spread out, it's kind of hard to find somebody to find it. Find other people a lot of times, but it's bad enough if you're the victim. I mean, it's pretty important to you. So you always have to make sure you take care of that. But really hit the crime, which I think, when you come right down to it, most of the crime is caused by people looking for drugs or money to buy their drugs because they don't have. Most of them aren't ambitious enough to work, but they're ambitious enough to walk down the street and try car doors and steal things. And if you can, I still say if you can. You're never going to eliminate the drugs, but reduce the drug problem. You're going to reduce all crime across the board as well. Cut the head off the snake, and the snake's going to die, sort of a thing.
Okay, thank you. I see we have one person here. If there's anybody else, come on down. Please state your name and your question. Ms. Handelon.
My name is Kim Tomlinson, and I want to go back to the bullying issue. We do have a very large problem with it in the schools here. What would be some solutions you would think of to help alleviate some of that, or make the kids aware that there are legal ramifications for the bullying that they are doing?
Me first?
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry.
The officer, or the deputy that I alluded, that he's going to training in here, South Dakota, he's actually taking a brand new curriculum. I believe there is a lesson within that curriculum that touches on bullying. I think that's one good start. I think there's like I said earlier, there's codes out there that we can charge these kids that are bullying. I don't think there's any reason to develop any more criminal codes. I think it's a community effort. It's got to be a community effort. It can't just be law enforcement. And it can't just be law enforcement and schools. It's got to be parents, our businesses. It's a big undertaking to deal with this bullying, but I think a community like Dillon and Lima and Wisdom and Jackson, I think they can do something.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, each of you now have 5 minutes to make a closing statement. Paul, we'll start with you.
I'm not a public speaker. I'm not good in front of crowds. I'm real nervous right now. So it's hard for me to come across very well on a one-to-one basis dealing with people. I do a whole lot better. It's one of those deals when I was going out knocking on doors with people, and talking to people. I would tell them, you have my phone number, give me a call. Or they would actually stop. They would stop me right there, and we would stop and visit. And I do a lot better on one-on-one. I think I've got a real heart to try to help people. I never really felt that I did until I became a reserve and realized that it feels pretty good to be a good guy that comes riding up. and then teaching the kids the dare and getting them started. I fought that pretty hard with Jake Heineke, who was then the sheriff at the time, that convinced me to go ahead and go to school. And if he was here, I'd be thanking him, because it was one of the best things I did. Get a chance to deal with talk with those kids. And actually, there was a lesson when I went to dare school, which was, I believe, 3 years ago, that there was one lesson concerning bullying back then. They may have improved it or modified it since I went, but they dealt with it. And the way that they kind of dealt with it was to not let the kid that's being bullied stand alone. Everybody, usually when the big tough kid comes up and wants to, beat up on the little guy, everybody else just goes away, hopefully that nobody will see him. It teaches them to stand together. And that's really the only way that I think you deal with it. Like Jay says, I agree with him that law enforcement isn't the only answer, because bullying starts with the problems at home, I think. It starts with the parents, either the lack thereof or no discipline from the parents that are there. If it gets bad enough, yeah, the deputy or the officer can write citations and send them up before the juvenile probation, and hopefully the juvenile probation officer is able to discipline them in some way, but that discipline also has to come from home. Because there are, like Jay says, there are rules. Assault is the biggest one. Disorderly conduct is another one. If someone's getting mouthy. But I think my experience in business has taught me to watch my pennies. But a lot of times, as an independent businessman, that's all I ever had was pennies. I think I'd be able to manage the budget fine. Jay's got some excellent people down there working there, excellent resources to use. I think I'd put those resources to use. I think I could do really well as far as in areas that I don't have the expertise, but there's always somebody in there that does have the area expertise, and it's the ability to be a supervisor enough to be able to realize that you have other people that have abilities that you may not shine at, and pull them in and utilize their talents. I guess I don't have a whole lot more to say. I believe I'll do a good job. I believe I was a pretty good deputy. From the reaction I have from the community, the people that I've talked to and I've dealt with all the time, they all appreciated me, even if I was arresting them. Treating them the way I wanted to be treated is where it boils down to. And I think I'd continue to do that and encourage the deputies to do that if I became the sheriff.
Thank you, Jay.
Well, I'm going to touch on just a couple things, because you shut me down on my accomplishments.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How did I do that?
I ran out of time.
Oh, you ran out of time.
I think I just want to discuss just a little bit about my chaplain program. And basically, I brought him on, I don't know, Dale, three years. And we physically, and he helps us out physically and spiritually. He assists my deputies on a regular basis with difficult situations like deaths, suicides, and mental health issues. It really takes the burden off of some of my deputies, and I really appreciate Dale. The other thing, and I wanted to make sure that we've developed our group, our committee, the law enforcement or the local emergency planning committee. We're working on that planning on a monthly basis, and I think it's very important for that upcoming disaster. And I think with the commissioners, the DES, and public health, I think we've done a good job with our planning. The other accomplishment that I'd like to talk about is making it through 2 rainbows, not just one, but 2. And if you haven't, if you didn't know that there was 2, it happened in 2000. And but I think I accomplished something just getting through that, not just once but twice. During my tenure, I've developed solid ideas and proven concepts to administer the various departments within the office, the sheriff's office. I'm also the only candidate with management credentials and knowledge that required to run an office with an overall budget of $1.5 million. The office must be, it must run efficiently and effectively in order to attain the goals and the objectives that I outlined today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jay. Hansen and Oldynski, appreciate your coming. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we'll pick up with the candidates for the representative class. We'll be back in 5.